Fractional hiring. Well, with apologies to Biff Tannen, what kind of stupid idea is that? So I don't get that response. In fact, most folks are interested when we talk about Fraction.work and the concept that the best talent already has a job. So why not hire them fractionally? But I think that a lot of folks, they're actually still a little bit, well, timid or unsure because, this is new. And frankly, I'm sure there are plenty of people who think this is a stupid idea still, who are very fixed to the idea that professional work needs to be done full time. And so with that in mind, I thought that the best way to explain it is to talk about my own success story with using fractional work, because that's where this really comes from, is over a decade of experience in working this way, leading to a successful exit. So if I back up to my last company, HiddenLevers, we sold portfolio stress testing or risk management software to financial advisors and started building that company around 2010. I actually worked fractionally myself prior to that, like 2006 to 2009, and that enabled me to save up a lot of the capital needed to bootstrap HiddenLevers, to sort of just pay my own expenses while I was bootstrapping. So my co-founder and I, we started HiddenLevers in 2010, and we didn't put much capital in. We were 100% bootstrapped, not a dime raised. I think we put all of $10,000 in, as our founding capital. So we're basically living, on our own savings. And we couldn't hire until we were generating revenue. So once we actually had clients, we had financial advisors paying for our software, then the first thing we needed was help with building integrations to connect with other software systems in the wealth tech space. And so what I do, I decided, I'm like, well, we don't have the capital to hire full time. And so why don't I call up a friend of mine, this guy Sohail, who I knew was bored at AT&T, and I knew he had the capacity to do it. So I said, hey, why don't you work for us half time, help us build these integrations? And so he started doing that. Fast forward to around the time of our exit, he had been with us for 9 years. He built 25 integrations and maintained those over time. So valuable asset to our team, but all throughout working just half time. And so with that success, as we began to grow the team, we started using fractional hiring for essentially almost every role. We would start folks fractionally and then go to full time once we were sure it was a fit. So it worked, in terms of onboarding new hires that were intended to be full time. And it also worked in terms of helping to build out a dev team and some other areas as well. At exit, when we sold the company, of our 12 developers, 5 of them, so over 40%, were fractional. And it enabled us to save an incredible amount of money just in terms of salaries. We're talking about senior engineers, so all in costs in the 200K, maybe even higher range. And so being able to pay a small fraction of that for, half-time work, from these engineers, that was saving us somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000 a year. We actually saved even more because another thing that we found that the fractional hiring enabled was it helped us to hire more junior on our in-house team. And there was sort of a knowledge vector that was transferring between the fractional senior folks to some extent and the in-house junior engineers. And so that saved us on that in-house hiring as well. I would say all in across, all functions, we were saving about $1 million a year. That was a substantial component of our profitability, which enabled, a 9-figure exit when we went to do M&A. So it worked well for us. What was interesting with the exit was that a couple of engineers actually made the transition, and some of them continued to work at the acquirer today. So it worked on an ongoing basis and through that whole process. So startups out there, if you're thinking, well, this would never work in the full life cycle of a startup, well, it did for us. So after that exit, I was thinking about, well, what do I want to work on next? And I kept coming back to this idea of fractional work. It seemed like, a great solution for growing companies. And so I thought, well, how am I going to take this idea and scale it out to other startups and other growing businesses? And, it was from that the idea for Fraction was born. So let's take a look on the board at how that worked. So I'm going to jump onto the board here and just go through a couple of key points in terms of how we've managed to scale this model out now to work with many dozens of clients. We've got over 200 developers, and other resources within our pool. And I'll start with the fact that what we found works and works really well is 100% US based senior talent. So what do I mean by that? Well, the US based part is obvious, and not trying to be, jingoistic here. What this is really about is that I think that there is value in having teams be more local and be attuned to local culture, be attuned to even nuance within industries, within verticals. And so we try to match, in terms of industry knowledge as well. In terms of the senior talent, we have a hard minimum of 5 years of experience, but the median, I would say, within our talent pool is 10 to 12 years. We're finding a lot of developers when they get, roughly mid-career at that point, and they're at some big company, the Googles, the Microsofts, but honestly, many different companies. There are sort of two options in a career path. You can either become management, but if you don't become management, then, at times you can find your career stalling out. And so there's lots of folks that are technically very talented, or as individual contributors, they're very talented, and they start to get bored. Their job is getting easy. They've got some spare capacity on their hands. And so this enables them to actually get engaged with a startup or with a growing company and work fractionally. And I think that that's why it was so compelling to the folks that we work with at HiddenLevers. So that senior talent, the other way that we find that senior talent is bootstrap founders. So that's another great resource pool that we've identified. They're looking to bootstrap so they could use some cash flow. But as founders, they know how to wear a lot of different hats. And they've got that sort of breadth of skill sets, to help bring a product to life, because that's what they're doing every day with their own companies anyway. So that's key for us. So this next one, I've put a lot of time into this, and I continue to, but I'll call it personal vetting. So I have 8 interviews today, just as an example. So I continue to be, rather personally involved with the vetting process. Could we use AI and leverage some, modern techniques to help with this? I think to an extent, perhaps. But what we found, when you're speaking with senior talent, they don't want to talk to a machine. They want to talk to somebody who is a peer. And my goal is to find folks who are, at that level, that are peers in terms of their talent to bring into the pool. And so that's why I believe that personal vetting continues to be important. So last thing in terms of how does this work in practice, day to day? So what we found works well in most cases is halftime. So halftime, and that means, what does that mean? That means on your Slack or Teams or whatever you use for communication. And that means meeting up to daily. So we actually ensure that every engineer that we work with, or every resource that we work with, that they have time to meet up to daily. We find that 2 to 3 meetings per week is what most clients, in practice want to do. But we do leave the capacity for synchronous work every day, so it doesn't feel that different than working with your in-house team, and it shouldn't. It should feel like working with somebody who's on your team. And then lastly, we back those folks up with both PM, as in project and light product management, sort of backing, and also from a software architecture perspective to make sure things are going smoothly. So we found that I would say a lot of clients and companies, because this fractional concept is new, they're not necessarily accustomed to working in this way. And so that's why, what I would call the backing of a team, we found a lot of value in that, and I think our clients have as well. So this is how we're bringing fractional talent to market. And my view is that in the course of the coming decade, as much as 10% of the workforce is going to be working this way. So we're talking about millions of people. I'm here to evangelize it. So I'm here to say that even if you don't try with us, I think you should try fractional hiring. You can do it yourself, do it with somebody else, but we think we've got it figured out if you want to give it a try.